Greetings, friends. Welcome. The What's Right show is on, powered by Sam and Ash Injury Law. 1-800-304-2000, 800-304-2000, because you deserve what's right. Yesterday, I have to share this with you. I was at work, and my son came by the office and had a meet with me. Of course, you know, he's a senior in high school, and he's getting ready to go to college, and he, you know, he's settled on a school, and he came to me with the tuition. Well, it's a deposit that needs to be paid for him to start enrolling in classes in the fall. And those of you who've gone through this know exactly what I'm talking about. It isn't real until you make that deposit. It just hit me that 18 years with him just went by like that. It just passes you by. Life is quick, folks. It's quick, and I was, you know, I'm at work. I'm in full work mode. He comes in, brings his laptop. We went over it, and I almost got emotional, Robbie, here sitting with him. So, you know, it's just if you got little kids at home and you think it's not going to happen, just enjoy every second of it. That said, I'm very happy for him. He's going to a good school, and I think, you know, I think he's going to have this is going to be a great 4 years for him. But oh my goodness, Sam at what'srightshow.com is my email. At What's Right Sam on X, formerly known as Twitter, where of course I have been throwing some barbs out. Well, Glenn Greenwald, he is under my skin right now, Robbie. Greenwald, you know, Greenwald is a well-known journalist, of course. Remember, one of his top sources was none other than Eric Snowden, and did the entire expose on the Bush and Obama era NSA network, spying on Americans, the whole 9 yards. It needed to be revealed, and that was all good stuff. I just cannot see where he's coming from on Israel being behind every terrible thing. And for me, it's a bridge too far, of course. So just poking throwing some shade his way, having fun with that. Let me tell you what else is going on here. Yesterday, I mentioned that there was a peace plan offered by Trump. I said it was a big ask, and I said it was likely the Iranians would reject it, which in fact that they have. They've turned it down, predictably. And in the kerfuffle surrounding this turn down, Trump said that Iran had sent him some sort of a gift. He hinted at this. And amid this, people asked what it was about. Oil, he said, no, he kind of punted on it. And then somewhere along the way, someone made an insane $580 million insider trade. Instantly spiking oil futures. And about 15 minutes later, Trump announces a pause on Iran strikes. The markets moved, and of course, this person collected $580 million in contracts. So whoever made that trade is $500 million and more richer. Now, the reaction to this has been strong, and I reacted to it too, because this is not good. The presumption, of course, somebody got lucky. All right, yeah, I don't believe in that. So the next possible explanation is that it's somebody inside the administration or somebody with contact with the administration. And that's a problem, because this is not acceptable. But what, all of the Trump critics are not acknowledging is that there are a lot of moving pieces. And I just mentioned the back and forth with the Iranians. And we, of course, have, Israel involved. We have the Saudis involved, Qatar, Oman. other countries involved, high-level negotiators, sovereign wealth funds, okay, in the United Arab Emirates, a lot of money there too, all right? A lot of people may have known before anything was announced what was happening. It doesn't just automatically lead to the Trump family. Now, if it does, I mean, I'm furious. I expect people to be held to account, but there's a lot of people that are familiar with what is going on. When I say a lot of people, I don't mean thousands, but certainly, there are at least 20, 30, maybe 80 or 100 even that know, and then they tell others, and so it spreads. Anyway, this is my my take on it. Speaking of Greenwald, this is great. So Tel Aviv, some rockets hit Tel Aviv, hit Israel the other day, and this is what all the media does. This is what irritates me about all of this. He says all Israel had to do was lay down its weapons and surrender. Let me read here is the tweet. This is why, folks, I'm over here. I'm trying to be reasonable. I'm trying to be the common sense conservative. Folks, this is what I intend on doing here. We have common sense conservatism here on the What's Right show, Monday through Friday on the What's Right Media Network. So common sense, this is nuts. Here's the tweet. All Israel has to do is lay down its weapons, surrender, and these attacks will stop. Pretty simple. Over 1 million views. What about October 7th? Am I allowed to ask, what should Israel have done differently to not invite that attack upon itself, number one? And number two, what should Israel have done differently to get back its hostages? These are the two questions nobody will ever answer. And you're going, well, Sam, it doesn't matter. We're talking about Iran here. But we have some hindsight available to Gaza, to the Gaza war. We have some hindsight, certainly, for October 7th. We can see how it started, how it went, and how it's ending. We don't yet have that luxury here with Iran. But the fact of the matter is that Iran has been a tremendously hostile neighbor to Israel for decades. The amount of dead Israelis at the hands of Iranian proxies is staggering. To deny this is insane. Again, I'm busy countering the narrative here. It boggles the mind. So, look, I don't know. Now there's talk. Robbie, you were telling me about the Houthis and potentially another strike opening up near Yemen. If the Houthis get pulled into the war, yeah, I agree with you. I think they're toast. This is. Everybody in the Western liberal media is doing a tremendous amount to talk up the capabilities of our enemies. It's not how it ought to be, but it's where we are. And of course, then you have the cheerleaders for the war who are doing the exact opposite. And I found that in the midst of all of this, it's very difficult to find accurate information. The other kind of moving piece in all of this, a component in all of this, following it throughout yesterday and overnight here is I'm seeing a lot of notices about Marines gearing up to amassing. I mean, 4,500 Marines, preparing, ostensibly for deployment. And does this mean that they're going to deploy? Again, you have to put this all through the filter, assuming it's true. And there's been enough chatter from through various military channels, people saying that they've gotten deployed. So if it's true, and assuming that, then you have to understand too that Trump is in the middle of pressuring Iran to make a deal, and no negotiation can happen without a threat of absolute maximum punishment. And having so look, I mean, if Trump wants to get a deal done, He has to set up the stage in a way that makes the Iranians think that he's willing to go all in. Well, the big problem with Trump negotiating, actually, the leverage to negotiate is being taken away by the woke right in America. This is this has to be said about the current situation. Every time that we have people on supposedly our side coming out and saying, we can't deploy, we can't do this, we can't do that. If Trump does this, he's lost politically. What sounds like political discourse, and it certainly is being picked up by the enemy and being taken to mean that Trump doesn't have stomach for a fight. That is a loss of leverage in any negotiation. This is why I'm being very circumspect about it. I've mentioned a number of times here, and I'm doing it, I'm not being too overt about it, and I hope the Iranians aren't listening. Do I want to see being embroiled in a land war with mass casualties on our side? It's not ideal. It's not what I want to see. I know many of you are opposed to it as well. But stacking up our armed forces, and in particular right now, our commander-in-chief, the President of the United States, and his diplomatic team to find a diplomatic solution and to scare the other side into genuinely believing that the world as they know it will end is essential. The bigger the threat, the more likely of a step down. For their part, the Iranians are mining Karg Island. About 90% of the country's oil exports flow through there. And they're doing what they feel they need to prepare for. So clearly, Trump is in their head, with the idea that there might be a land invasion. Well, this is what it is. By the way, Congress says if the SEC doesn't investigate that $580 million insider trading tip, that they're going to step in. Folks, I'm telling you that Congress is just bent out of shape that they didn't get the tip first. That's what that is. Okay. Well, I've got so much to cover. Well, yeah, I didn't mention this yesterday. You're right. Huge victory in Missouri. Well, it was actually at the Supreme Court, but here's what happened. Missouri v. Biden. This is a case that we've talked about in the past here on the program many times. It has to do with social media censorship under the Biden administration. This was a victory for free speech online. Now, let me give you a quick primer on this. This is important. Okay? Yes, I understand the argument that a social media company, let's say Facebook, we'll use Facebook. A lot of people use Facebook. I'm not a big Facebook fan. I'm on X. I love X. And for the cute stuff, the family stuff, the occasional meme, I use Instagram. Both of those, by the way, at What's Right Sam. Check it out. Click to follow. Now, you put something up on your Facebook page. I understand the argument that it is private property, that it is property, albeit, up in the, the digital cloud, property that belongs to Meta, that belongs to Facebook. And that you sign an agreement at the beginning of signing up for your account that, that whatever you put up there actually gets turned over and becomes the property of said company. I get that. Now, here's the problem. For about 45 years in this country, there has been established precedent arising from a case out in California. And this case out in California was a test of free speech on private property rights. And this is long before the internet, certainly before social media. What was this case about? It was a group of students who wanted to set up a Greenpeace protest booth. That's right. These were libs. These students were liberals. They were left-wingers. And they were out in California. So what they did is they set up a booth at a private shopping center. I think the center was called Pruneyard or Pruneyard. And this, okay, so they set it up, and they immediately get kicked out by security. That's a private shopping center. You got to leave. The case goes all the way up through the courts. I think the ACLU took up the cause of the plaintiffs. Pruneyard v. Robbins is the case. And it decided there's some technical elements to this that's a little inside baseball, but the gist of it is the court said, actually, free speech rights exist to a limited extent on private property where that private property has been opened up to the public. Okay? And so they said the shopping center, and this is what they literally in the holding of the case, in the court decision, the Supreme Court came down and said, hey, this case is, we've decided that the shopping center is actually the new public square. Because what was going on in 1979, 1980, right? Well, first of all, the libs and their housing and urban development programs had blighted every city center around the country. Crime out of control. So where do people go hang out? They went and hung out in shopping centers. They didn't hang out in the town square. They went to the mall. And this is why to this day you'll go to your mall and you'll see a booth there and it says free speech activities, and it could be political or it could be the Jehovah's Witnesses or whatever it is, right? It's there. And every time you see it, you go, hey, Sam told me about this, My favorite lawyer explained it all to me. Now let's take it a step further. And this is where the victory, and this is why it was always so unjust what Biden did, because remember, the Biden administration literally reached out to Facebook, reached out to Meta, reached out to Twitter, reached out to Google, YouTube, right? And in the midst of a politically contentious moment, which was COVID, decided to begin to direct these companies, remove the post of this person and that person, this American, that American, take down their posts, or else we will come after you with our regulatory powers. Now let's go back to that Pruneyard case, and let's go back to what this means, right? Public square. I can think of a great argument, a very easy argument to say that Twitter, now X, is the new public square. Yes, it's a private company. Yes, it's their servers. It's their, we'll call it their building, right? But they've invited people in. They've invited the public in. And guess what they've invited the public to come in to do? It's not even a shopping center. With a shopping center, I think the shopping center has a better argument than Twitter, right? Shopping center, says, hey, we're just inviting people in to buy things. It's not where you go and talk about, it's not a place for politics. But people literally are invited onto X and onto Facebook, less so onto Instagram, to exchange their opinions. That's what social media is. All right? And the idea, and so the important thing here is it turns out that social media, that, again, what's the First Amendment? The First Amendment says the government cannot interfere with your speech, right? The government. Now, Twitter can take your post down, right? X can take your post down to Facebook, etc. But the minute you have the government telling this company, take this post down, and threatening that company with very significant consequences if they fail to do so, now the government is stepping on your right to speak. And that's where it becomes a problem. Now, a lot of people are completely lost on this point, and a lot of liberals who think that this is a nonsense decision just came out. Missouri v. Biden, huge victory there. Eric Schmidt, who was the AG who sued the Biden regime for colluding with big tech, he's now a senator. He just look, it's a huge win. But the people that are so against this, the left that thought that this was a great thing, that we ought to have Nina Jankowicz as the disinformation czar. It's funny. You think about how far the left has lost its way in America. And when you go back 45 years and you go back to the fight, the original fight for free speech rights on private property, it was the left that supported this. It's an interesting thought. Food for thought, I suppose. Sam Mirejovsky on the What's Right Media Network. Back in a moment, folks. Don't go anywhere.
The Sam and Ash team, they wanted me to have the best care. They had my interests at heart. I have an enormous amount of gratitude. I cannot say enough thank you.
Rarely wrong, always right. Sam Mirejovsky here on the What's Right Media Network. And friends, a word about Sam and Ash injury law. You know what I'm going to tell you. Don't go at it alone. Don't handle your case on your own. Don't try it. It's not a do-it-yourself project. Please, for the love of everything good, be smart. Hire a lawyer and hire the right lawyer from the beginning. Sam and Ash injury law, 800-304-2000. Don't waste your time, your precious time with your kids, your family, your friends, job, right? Career, things that you need to focus on by chasing paperwork and fulfilling impossible tasks for, frankly, for a claims adjuster that's just going to end up shafting you. All right? 800-304-2000. That's the number. Tell your family and friends today. Tell them what I'm telling you. Make them understand this, okay? Get some advice on your case right now. No recovery, no fee. If it doesn't work out for whatever reason, you don't owe us any money. And then most importantly, no money up front, right? Doesn't cost any money out of pocket. Just sign the contract and you're on your way. 800-304-2000, because you deserve what's right. All right, friends. Good to be here. Sam at what'srightshow.com, at What's Right Sam on X. Have you noticed, Robbie, in the last 48 hours or so that suddenly the left is being very complimentary of Richard Nixon and Barry Goldwater? You know, well, I'm 45. My entire life, from the time I began to be politically aware, all I've heard is piss and vinegar from the Democrats about Nixon, certainly also about Goldwater. But lo and behold, my friends, suddenly Nixon is being rehabilitated by the left because somewhere they claim they dug out some tapes where he's saying bad things about Jews. You can't make this stuff up. You cannot make this stuff up. They're claiming that Nixon, had it. It felt that Israel was the invisible dark hand, the manipulator behind the scenes. They posted a bunch of people have posted the full quotes. The full quotes from Nixon tell a very different story. Okay. Jewish Americans see that U.S.-Israel interests are perfectly aligned. They're usually aligned, but not always. When they're not aligned, he ignored the lobby, and acted in U.S. interests. Okay, but it's not telling the story that you, and I'm speaking to the liberals now, that you want to tell. But that's just it. They'll contort history to fit whatever current fantasy they're in. And the best part about liberalism, it never has to connect with anything, right? I mean, 2 weeks ago, they could be easily bringing Nixon up in the context of being the greatest, Israel aider and abetter, and then 2 weeks later, they're figuring out how to use him in the exact opposite way. All right, so that's interesting. Roger Stone and Bannon still going at it. Do you all remember? I just want to tell you this, and I get it. I get it. Bannon's not a dumb guy, and he says good things and smart things occasionally. But Bannon is a bad dude, and I told you so. I told you this now several years ago. I'm going to call it like it is. Bannon's build the wall, raise money to build the wall, his con job on, honest, good, conservative Americans raising money for a project and then spending that money on personal expenses is not okay. Now, two things can always be true at the same time. I say this. So here in this context, was Bannon singled out because he was a Trump ally? Probably. Did he get the book thrown him because he was Trump's ally and on Team Trump and MAGA? Of course. There's no question in my mind about that. But did he commit felonies? Did he defraud people? Most certainly. And I'm not going to sit here and debate whether he needed the pardon or not. I generally favor Trump handing out pardons to people who were convicted by Team Biden because I just think a lot of it was politically motivated. But it doesn't change the fact that he's a dirty bird. Now add to it what's come out in the Epstein files. This is not good. And you just kind of knew it. And he was working with Epstein. You want to know how bad it is? I'm not calling Bannon a pedophile. I'm calling Bannon someone who has spectacularly bad judgment and is profoundly disloyal. You're probably thinking, well, what are you talking about, Sam? I don't get it. Epstein files all about, underage prostitution, sex, human trafficking, and the like. Well, not quite. When the proverbial poo-poo hit the fan, okay, with Epstein, and he started getting a lot of unwanted negative attention, he did a lot of consulting with people, even paid people money to help him rehabilitate his image. And Bannon is one of those. And there are a couple thousand, 1,500, 1,600 emails or so exchanged between the two of them. And one of the things that I've noticed in those emails is Bannon's stunning lack of loyalty to Trump. It's in there. And in fact, he's at one point is seems to me to be giving Epstein ammunition against Trump, which means that Bannon is a mercenary. Okay, means he needs money. Well, he needs money badly enough to steal it from ordinary, hardworking, conservative Americans. But he's just a complete bozo and a clown. And there is, okay, well, that's all history. It's a setup to what's going on right now because Trump backed out of CPAC. You see this? It was one thing that happened earlier this week, but we didn't get to it yesterday. And Trump has said that he is backing out of CPAC because some people there are under the influence of the Chinese Communist Party. Who do you think he means? Because Roger Stone, by the way, I love Roger, great guy. Roger Stone, who despises Bannon, by the way, despises Bannon, says that Stinky Steve is the guy, that's what he calls him, Stinky Steve. Well, Bannon, you guys know this, right? Bannon has terrible hygiene. I think he calls him Stinky. Sloppy it's Stinky Steve. That's what I mean, he maybe has called him sloppy in the past, but lately Stone has been calling him Stinky. Anyway, but he's just a terrible, he's a slob. Bannon is. Anyway, so Roger Stone thinks it's Bannon, is calling it out as Bannon being the one that is under Chinese Communist Party influence. And one of the reasons why Trump is declining, stated reasons for why he's declining going to CPAC this year. Interesting stuff. Do you think for a minute that the Chinese Communist Party is happy to just work hard to influence Democrats? To just work hard to influence the Democratic Party and the liberal movement in America? Or are they also, you got to give them some credit, right? I mean, these people are smart and wily. Or are they also looking for ways to subvert MAGA? Because the Chi-Coms got it wrong certainly once and probably twice. They certainly got it wrong in 2016. China was caught by surprise, almost as surprised as Hillary Clinton, who no doubt was sponsored by Beijing as the preferred candidate. Now, the second time around, Biden, of course, is supported by the Chinese too. So was Kamala Harris. So I guess the third time around in 2024 is what we'd say, as things were starting to look good for Trump. I still have a lot of questions about who put out the two hits on him, the two attempted assassinations, and probably others that we don't even know about. And to what extent China was behind it. China absolutely dead set on having Trump be president. But what better way to prevent Trump or limit Trump, or at least spy on Trump and the Trump administration, the MAGA movement, than to have people on the inside? And their abilities to corrupt are limitless. So I don't know. Well, Chitty Fang Fang didn't work on Bannon. I don't know if that's really his cup of tea. Swalwell maneuver didn't quite land there. But anyway, there it is. Speaking of people that take money from communist China, Elizabeth Warren is back in the news, and people are coming. The left continues to come to this woman's defense. Do you know, how do I put this nicely? Every time that Trump gets out there and says something rude, it started with the Bob Mueller thing, right? It didn't start there, but this week it started there, right? Bob Mueller, thank goodness he's dead, ding dong, right? And everybody lost their minds. I told you what I thought about that. Namely, that had Bob Mueller gone after my family, had he gone after my friends, my associates, had he put innocent people in, or had them arrested and perp walked and done all of what he did, had Bob Mueller done that to me, I don't know how charitable I would have been when everybody else was praising his public service. But Trump said something about Elizabeth Warren the other day. And again, it was another avalanche of, how can you say this is Pocahontas, whatever it is that he calls her. And can we just, the internet is forever. Elizabeth Warren didn't just say she had, Native American heritage. She filled out her text, and this is all coming out again now. I love when they push back on the characterization. What happened is, yes, her original 1986 Texas bar registration card, which mine were all digital. Robbie, I'm looking at this one. Handwritten, right? It's in the 80s. You can get it. You can look at it. You can find it. She claimed there that she was American Indian, and specifically that she was Cherokee, part of the Cherokee Nation. Fordham Law School verbatim listed her as Harvard Law School's first, woman of color. This is crazy stuff. And this is all coming out now because Markwayne Mullin, who is tapped to be Trump's replacement for Kristi Noem at the Department of Homeland Security, is actually an enrolled member of the Cherokee Nation. And everybody's having conniptions fit about this. How can Trump call Pocahontas and this guy's acting like white dude is acting like he's a Native American? Look, number one, let's talk about the beauty, the miracle that is the Trump social media phenomenon. Trump, by throwing something out again about Pocahontas, about Elizabeth Warren, what happens is everybody goes crazy. And then it invites a pushback from the other side. Now, this is what happens when you have a free exchange of ideas, and this is why it's so important to have freedom of speech. So they say, how dare you be racist? The response from this guy is, well, wait. Look at all the stuff that she did that's just blatantly disqualifying. I mean, how can she even be in Congress, in the Senate? This is not possible. And when the dust settles, the person who looks worse, objectively speaking, I understand the left never, views everything emotionally, but objectively speaking, right? If you remove all names and party labels and you just gave somebody in a vacuum, this guy over here called this person over here X, but this person over here who he called that nasty thing actually did X, Y, and Z. All right. And, I'm telling you, 9 out of 10 people would go, yeah, that's pretty messed up, and would think that Elizabeth Warren was the worst person for it. And in this sense, the Bob Mueller thing almost starting to make sense. Trump just drops this bomb when you're normally supposed to be, RIP. Well, if you have nothing nice to say, don't say it. And he drops this bomb. And what have we been experiencing all week? I know what I'm seeing. I'm seeing very careful, meticulous recounting of all the terrible things that Mueller did, preceding years before Trump ever came on the political scene. And it moves the conversation to a different place. Now, has civil discourse become worse? Right? Maybe, right? People try to blame Trump for civil discourse going off the rails. I don't think that's true at all. And I have a memory about this, by the way. This is my response, Robbie, when people say it's Trump. The media turned, and maybe this is a perception thing for me, because I didn't become really politically aware until my early teens, when Clinton was already president. Okay. But what I remember is I remember that during Bush's presidency, when the war started, at first Afghanistan, later Iraq, but even before that, honestly, I had a Bush-Cheney sticker on my car, and it was living in Orange County. I was 20 years old or so. And people would just nasty pull up next to me and thumbs down, give me the middle finger. I mean, it was terrible. Because do you know what the media would say about Bush? Have we forgotten this? So the discourse in this country, I can't speak to it necessarily firsthand experience of how it was under Reagan, though the media certainly was deeply unkind and unfair to Reagan as well. Ditto to Nixon, certainly, right? But I can tell you the discourse was bad starting in my, certainly my adult lifetime, well preceding Donald Trump's presidency. And Obama, and they all were they have so much contempt for people on the other side of the aisle. And they've used dehumanizing language to describe them. Now, people say it's social media too, that's a factor in all of this. It's making us less polite. Maybe. By the way, a quick comment here on these social media cases. I mean, I'm starting to get calls on this too at Sam and Ash, because I actually think that these social media companies like Meta are evil, and what they do to kids is really hurtful. And yeah, I mean, there are two big cases here in the last 24 hours. The one is the New Mexico case, almost $400 million verdict. That was the state of New Mexico suing on behalf of minors that are basically being sex trafficked. And there's nothing that these social media companies are doing to prevent it. They're taking minors' accounts and they're encrypting end-to-end messaging on it, making it virtually impossible for investigators to track people that want to harm kids. So that's going to hurt, as it should. But the other case was in California, was in Los Angeles. I was following this case pretty closely. It's a 20-year-old girl. She's 20, but she was a minor. And basically, Google, like the case is against Google and it's against Instagram, and basically and Meta, right? Basically claiming that these two companies created software that was so addictive that it drove obsessiveness and then, of course, mental disorders. And my 10 cents on this is that I want, and hear me out, this is important. If you know people that have been affected by this, I want to talk to you in my professional capacity as an attorney, because I think that the social media companies have driven the trans epidemic. So, by the way, the jury here gave the girl $3 million, single plaintiff, right? It's not a class action, $3 million. Doesn't sound like a lot. It's not a lot of money to Facebook. But once thousands of Americans begin to sue these companies, it's going to be a good thing. Remember, these are woke companies. Disgusting people run them. Big Democrat donors. They gave us Biden. They want to destroy this country. I know some of you are not keen on us trial lawyers, but when it comes to taking down Google and taking down Meta, maybe you'll just make an exception. Oh, samandashlaw.com. How's that? All right. Sam Mirejovsky, behind the What's Right microphone. Sam at what'srightshow.com is my email. At What's Right Sam on X. The show, if you still aren't getting the podcast, What's Right Show. It's free. I mean, what a deal. Best value podcast out there. I can promise you that. Yeah, What's Right Show. Get it. Click to subscribe. I'll see you tomorrow.